Hi guys, welcome to today's video, which is going to be my December reading wrap up. It's going up late because I was debating filming this at all. I feel like I was just prioritizing so many end of the year videos as well as beginning of the year videos. So my wrap up just kind of took a back seat, and then I touched on all the books I read in December in my tier ranking video. So I was just kind of going back and forth on it, but I just feel incomplete not filming a full wrap up, telling you all my thoughts and feelings on the books I read last month. So I figured let's just get into it, better late than never, and let's talk about what I read in December. The first book I read to get into the Christmas season was The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. This one's following two twins. They both have careers in baking. One twin lives in LA and is a guest judge for this reality baking show, and then the other twin works at their family bakery back in their hometown. And the twin on the reality show ends up having an accident on set, so she loses her taste and smell, which she needs for her show. So the twins come to this agreement and decide to swap places, and it's a very predictable and cliche, but they end up like finding themselves when they swap lives and end up learning all these life lessons that they can teach the other twin as well. And there's of course romance involved in each twin's life. And I don't know, I always kind of have low expectations for holiday books, but this one really surprised me. I was impressed. I enjoyed it a lot. I gave it 4 stars. I really liked the twin swapping trope. I couldn't decide which twin I liked reading about better. I honestly loved them both so much that when one twin's chapters were over, I like didn't want the next ones to begin. And then when I got into the other twin story, I was like so invested equally as much, and I just kept going back and forth on which story I was enjoying more. I loved the LA city setting of the twin on the reality show, which made me realize that I really like the reality show aspect of this book, and I really want to seek out more books that have that reality show element to them. And I also equally as much enjoyed the small town setting of the other twin, which a lot of times small town settings just don't work for me, but I was really enjoying the characters in the small town, which was making me love it. And yeah, it was what you'd expect from a holiday romance. It was predictable and cliche and cheesy, but in the best way. It wasn't like cringy to me. I would really recommend this one for the holidays. Then I started the Truly Devious series by Maureen Johnson, and this one is following 2 timelines. One is in the 1930s, following this guy named Ellingham. He founded this boarding school called Ellingham Academy, and he's a very wealthy, successful man, and besides being known for that, as well as for founding the boarding school, he is more famously known for this tragedy that occurred in his life. His wife and daughter were kidnapped. So in present day, the timeline we're following is at this same boarding school. This student named Stevie is at the boarding school, and she is there really wanting to solve the mystery of who kidnapped Ellingham's wife and daughter. So I heard someone say that you were either a Good Girl's Guide to Murder person or a Truly Devious person. And since I didn't really love Good Girl's Guide to Murder as much as everyone else, I was hopeful that this would be more my thing. And it definitely was, so I fully agree with that statement now. I just thought this was so fun. I loved the setting. It just felt very like cozy to me. I loved the boarding school. I really liked the characters a lot. I was reading this the same time I was watching Wednesday, the show on Netflix, and I saw so many parallels between the two of them. So let me know if you've read this and watched Wednesday and you noticed the same thing. I just thought like the setting was so similar. They're both boarding schools. They're both set in Vermont. I don't know, I just saw a lot of parallels, especially with like the mystery too, and like kind of a love triangle aspect to it. I really enjoyed this. I will say that I liked the first half of the book significantly more than the last half of the book. I feel like I liked getting to know the characters more than diving into the mystery and trying to solve it. So I'm not sure how I will feel about the rest of the series, but I definitely plan on continuing it. The next 3 books I read for a holiday reading vlog, so if you want to know more in-depth thoughts about any of these next 3, definitely check out that vlog. But the first book I read for that vlog was Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. This one is following this woman who stops to look at a window display ends up having a little meet cute with the manager of the store. She doesn't know he's the manager though, so she ends up just like telling him how much she hates the window display and how she could do a better job. So he ends up hiring her to redo the windows, and then it follows their relationship. And I ended up giving this book 2 stars. Sadly, I just liked the premise more than I liked the execution. I really liked their meet cute, but from there, the pacing of the romance was weird. The spicy scenes made me cringe, just like the things they were saying to each other. I just wasn't really a fan of it. It felt a little bit half-baked to me, unfortunately. Then I read In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. This one is a time loop story where this girl goes to stay at this cabin in Utah for the holidays every year with her family and then a bunch of family friends. And then she finds out that the family is planning on selling the cabin because they just can't afford to maintain it anymore and it needs a lot of work done to it. So somehow she ends up in this time loop scenario. So I actually ended up giving this book 3 stars. Going into it, I was not sure how I was going to feel about the time loop premise. I was worried that it would get a little too repetitive, and I'm like, how are they going to make this interesting to where we're not living the same day over and over with her and it's like not going to be boring? But they ended up doing it really, really well. I was loving the time loop aspect to it. I was loving the found family aspects to this novel. And then a third of the way through, they completely put everything that I was loving about this book to a stop, and it just switches to this romance between our main girl and one of the like family friend's sons that she's always had a crush on. And that just became the rest of the story, and the time loop aspect just kind of stopped and wasn't really talked about much anymore. And I just thought it was weird, and I had no idea that this was going to be as romancy as it was, which I love romance, but I went back and I reread the back of the book and I'm like, yeah, I would not be under the impression that this was a romance if I was just going to pick this up. So I was a little bit disappointed. I feel like it's kind of mismarketed. Then I read Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh. This one's following Molly and Andrew, who are both from Ireland, but they currently live in Chicago. They have taken the same flight back to Ireland from Chicago every year when it's Christmas time to go back and visit their families for the holidays. And in the present, their current flight is delayed because there's this really bad storm. So they end up trying to make their way back home together. They go through all these detours, and even though they're just friends on their journey, they find out that maybe their feelings are a little bit more than platonic, and it's like this whole adventure of them trying to make it home in time for Christmas to see their families in Ireland. And I absolutely love this one. I gave it 4.5 stars. I said this a million times already in my holiday reading vlog, but if you like Emily Henry, you will definitely like this book. The writing felt very Emily Henry to me. This story was basically like 75% people we meet on vacation, 25% book lovers, but make it Christmas. And I just thought it was so, so cute. I wish there was a little bit more spice in it and a little bit more banter between the characters, but it was nearly perfect. I really, really loved it. I feel like this book had all the elements in it to make it nearly a perfect book for me. So highly recommend this one for the holidays. It was definitely my favorite of the 3 that I read for that vlog. Then I listened to The Family Next Door by Sally Hepworth on audiobook. You guys, if you've been here, know that I am a huge fan of Sally Hepworth. I discovered her last year and have just since become so obsessed with all of her thrillers, specifically the audiobooks of them, because the narrator is the same one for each book. And she does an incredible job. So The Family Next Door takes place in this like suburban neighborhood in Australia. We're following these 3 women's POVs. They are seemingly very normal. They're all mothers. I think 2 of them are stay-at-home moms. One of them is a career woman, but they live very traditional, normal lives. And then one day this new woman moves into the neighborhood and they are a little suspicious of her. They don't understand what her deal is. She's in her 40s and she's unmarried and she's childless. They just are confused about her because she kind of breaks the mold of their traditional lifestyles that they're used to. So they're suspicious of her, but they also have their own secrets that get revealed the further you get into learning about what each of their backgrounds is like and what each of their day-to-day relationships with their family are like. And I feel like that's all you should really know going into it. Not my favorite Sally Hepworth ever, but I still gave it 4 stars. I still thought it was great. It was enjoyable. It was intriguing. Worth reading if you just want an easy thriller to listen to. Not the most like crazy shocking plot twist, but Sally Hepworth books usually don't have that. It's usually more so like the entire story that's intriguing, and then you start putting the pieces together. Sally Hepworth does a really good job of painting the picture at the beginning to make you think things are a certain way, and then by the end of the story you realize that you were completely wrong about all the characters and who is bad and who is good and like what's really going on under the surface of all their lives. I just love her thrillers. Then I read Credence by Penelope Douglas. Okay, so if you don't know what this book is about, basically it is about this 17-year-old young girl named Tiernan. Both her parents just tragically died, but we learn that she's kind of had an estranged relationship from them, and she's kind of been used to doing things on her own and taking care of herself anyway. So when her parents die, she doesn't have any remaining family to live with, or so she thinks. But she's like, you know, it's fine. Like, I'm used to being on my own. I'm used to taking care of myself. She has this plan to go to college. She's about to be 18. So whatever. Then she gets a call like the next day, I think, from this step uncle who she didn't even know she had. But I emphasize step uncle. They are not blood related. He calls her and is like, hey, I heard your parents just passed and they actually left you in my care in their will. I know you're about to be 18, so I'm gonna give you the option. I'm not gonna force you to come stay with me if you don't want, but I live on the top of this mountain in this snowy town in Colorado with my 2 sons, who would be your step cousins. Again, step cousins. And you can come live with us if you want, if you don't want to be alone. I'm gonna extend the offer, but don't feel like you have to take it, just giving you the option. Tiernan ends up accepting the offer. She goes to live at the top of this mountain with her step uncle, who she barely knows, and her 2 step cousins, who she's never met. And it's a very snowy town in Colorado, so they get snowed in like 6 months out of the year or something crazy like that. So they grow a lot of their own crops and are very self-sustainable, because when they get snowed in, they can't leave to go to town to get groceries and supplies or whatever. They also have other needs that need to be met when it snows, and there's a lot of familial bonding that goes on when they get snowed in. That's all I'm gonna say. I knew going into this what it was gonna be about, what was gonna go down. I know that Penelope Douglas is a very taboo author. I kind of thought I knew what to expect. I'm the kind of person where nothing shocks me. I'm not judgmental at all. Like, I'm totally a do what makes you happy kind of person. I gave this book 2 stars. I feel like there were things I liked about it. I love the setting. Penelope Douglas is a really great writer. It was really well written. The way the tension was building up between the characters was so good. The spice and the smut in this book was out of this world. Craziest smut I have read in 2022 by far. I thought nothing shocked me until I read this book, and I was shocked. But I feel like this book was problematic, and the problematic stuff outweighed the things that I liked about the book. My main issues with it were not the taboo things. I could see past that. But it was more so the fact that for a good part of the book, when things were still kind of happening, she was underage. I know she's about to be 18 or whatever, but it still just made me feel icky. And my main issue with the book is this one character who does something so horrible, and it's just swept under the rug and never really addressed. And this horrible thing happens more than once by the same character. So please check trigger warnings if you want to read this. It was something else. This book is gonna stick with me for a long time, for better or worse. I definitely see why everyone talks about it. I'm glad I read it because now I know. I know why people talk about this book. If you want to read it for yourself, like I said, check trigger warnings, be warned, prepare yourself. I honestly will say, like, I feel like I could have given this book 4 or 5 stars if the problematic stuff didn't happen, but I just couldn't really see past the problematic things, and it just overall made me feel icky. So that's all I have to say about Credence by Penelope Douglas. Then I picked up Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. In all honesty, the sole reason I picked this one up is because it was nearing the end of 2022 and I was at like 98 books, and I knew I was gonna finish my 99th book, but it was gonna be a rush to read one more. So I was like, you know what, novella, 86 pages, Taylor Jenkins Reid. Let's do it to get to my goal of reading 100 books. And I was not expecting to enjoy this as much as I did. I gave it 4 stars. This one is told completely in the format of letters between this woman and a man whose spouses are both cheating on them with each other's spouse. It takes place in like the 70s, I think, so before the days of like texting and email and stuff, before the internet. So they're writing letters to one another and they're having to lean on each other in this really hard time. And I just really enjoyed it. I feel like for a short novella, it really packed a punch and was very impactful and well written, and I enjoyed the characters and the way the story played out, and I would definitely recommend it. And then the last book I read in 2022 is A Season for Second Chances by Jenny Bayliss. This one is about this woman whose husband has been cheating on her with multiple women. He's had multiple affairs, and finally when she catches him having an affair in the restaurant that they own together with one of the younger waitresses, I believe, that's her breaking point. She's like, you know what, we're getting a divorce. This was the final straw. So she ends up moving to this seaside town and taking a job as a house sitter and really trying to rebuild her life and find herself again and find happiness. And it's really a book all about, like the title says, second chances for herself, for love, finding new meaning in life. And it was a really sweet story. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I feel like it is kind of mismarketed as a Christmas holiday wintry book. It starts out in like late summer, and then it doesn't get to be like winter and Christmas until like the last 60 or so pages. So it spans over the course of a pretty long time. But I really like Jenny Bayliss's writing. Something about it feels so cozy and familiar, and the characters were really well thought out. They were really mature. I just feel like at times I was a little bit bored. I feel like this book could have been maybe like 50 pages shorter and it would have been a solid 4-star for me. Overall, I liked the setting a lot. I liked following this character. I liked the moral of the story, and I liked the way everything came together. And it was just a really sweet book. I don't know if I would recommend it for winter. I honestly don't know the best time to recommend reading this because, like I said, it spans over so many seasons. The title kind of feels misleading since it's A Season for Second Chances, but it takes place over like 3 different seasons. I enjoyed it, just a little bit lengthy, and there were times when I felt like it was dragging, but overall it was a very cozy and sweet story. Alright guys, those are all the books that I read in December. I feel like I flew through that, so hopefully I didn't leave anything out. But if I did, you would have heard from Editing Caroline. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts on them were, or if you plan to pick any up yourself, what books you read last month that you enjoyed, didn't enjoy, whatever you want to comment about, leave it down below. Don't forget to hit the red subscribe button to stick around to my channel. I'd love to have you here. Thanks again so much for watching. I'll see you guys so soon in my next video. Bye guys.